According to today's guest, 55% of working Americans would take a slightly lower paying job to work for a manager or leader who inspires brilliance. Well, let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because embracing and inspiring resilience and brilliance in the workplace is more important now than ever before. We have just the person to help us do just that.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Simon T. Bailey, is the world's leading expert in brilliance. The insights from his groundbreaking research, State of Working America report, Thriving in Resilience and Brilliance, are solidified in his 11th book, Resilience at Work: How to Coach Yourself into a Thriving Future. He's been recognized as Success Magazine's top 25, alongside with some big hitters such as Brene Brown, Tony Robbins, and Oprah Winfrey, as well as being on Leader's Hum Top 200 Power List. Now, how's that for a bio? Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be with you.
You bet. And it's a pleasure. And I want to dive right in with you. And I want to start with a few definitions because something tells me we're going to be using the words resilience and brilliance a lot. So give me a couple working definitions for each word.
Well, we asked working Americans, how do they define resilience? And if we gave them 17 choices, the top 3 ways they define resilience is problem solving, perseverance, and grit. We asked working Americans, how do they define brilliance? Gave them 17 qualities and choices. And the top 3, confidence, intelligence, and creativity.
Okay. All right. So and what we're going to do now, because I know you write about both, in a sense, is put the two together, because I'm looking at some of your numbers and statistics, and I think your work is fascinating, by the way. And you're writing that 87% of working Americans think both resilience and brilliance are valuable. Shocker. 81% think they would have a better work culture if their company invested more in helping people to thrive. Shocker. See, to me, Simon, the numbers aren't all that shocking. I'm messing with you.
Yeah.
But how long it's been an issue, that's shocking to me. So what's taking us so long?
I think people are just waking up to the fact that people have options now. They don't have to stay with a company forever. They can work remote, but work for a company around the world. And so companies are, wait a minute, we got to hold on to talent. So it's the wake-up call. It's how do we hold on to people to make sure they know that they're valued and they're not tolerated, they're truly activated.
Yeah. And you know what I love that you're writing about and you're talking about, and we're not talking about it enough. And that is the ridiculous perception that everybody's there for the money. And remember, I represent sort of the sales community where, you know, in a sense, that thought is on steroids. Everybody thinks for a salesperson, oh, it's all about money. They're just trying to grab as much money. But it's absolutely not true. And so we need your voice. We need people to remind that there's a lot more going on. Yes, we'd like to feed our families and take care of our children and plan our futures, but so much goes into it besides that. So, you know, I'm going to hit you one more time. Why are we dragging our feet on this one? Is it the managers aren't getting the word out? Is it people aren't articulating themselves? But everybody just always thinks that when I want to be recognized, classic example, Simon, recognition. We don't do it nearly enough. Why? The guy's going to want more money if I recognize them. So we're in this spin cycle. How do we get out of this?
Yeah, I think we get out of it 3 ways. Number 1, senior management has got to recognize that middle management is the sandwich management that's being squeezed, because the people at the top of the food chain are saying, you got to make this happen. And then there are people at the bottom of the food chain who are closest to the customer. And the manager in the middle is just trying to keep all the plates spinning. So they got to step back and say, how do we truly equip managers and supervisors with what allows them to be successful, having the right team members, the right count, saying no to things that just don't make sense. But then the other thing is stop doing stupid stuff. And when I say stupid stuff, okay, if you have a mid-year review, is that really effective? No. What if every 90 days you talk to people, find out, hey, is this still the place for you? What's working? What's not working? And that person can say, here's what's not working for me. And if it doesn't change, I'm out. But if it is working for me, I'll stay. So we've got to really begin to evaluate, how do we get people to be the best of the best?
Ooh, love that. And you're speaking my language. Look, I worked for corporate America. I was a Zeroid, a Xerox person, but I wasn't alone. I didn't really mind if my manager was upset at me or not upset at me. What kept me awake at night was not knowing the answer, and too often waiting for that middle of the year review, and with shaking practically, and half the time walking out going, "Well, doing better than I thought." I literally, and I know how to use the word literally, so I'm telling you, I literally begged my managers, just tell me when, the moment I turn right and your thought should be left, get it while it's a 1 out of 10, because you're not going to get an argument from me. But
Right.
we just seem to have this pattern of managers that kind of hold their cards and wait. It just drives people nuts.
It's the old school need to know, nice to know. Sometimes management holds on to the information because they don't think you can handle it. And what people don't know, they make up, they fill in the blank. And so the ability to say, hey, here's what I know. It's not pretty, but it's the real story.
Yeah, you know, uh, uh, truly, just tell the truth. I always tell people, the easiest way to be believed is tell the truth. It's as simple as that. To be authentic. I wish we could do just, and we won't go down this rabbit hole, but sometimes I think if we really trail this thing, it's how we're training our managers. I put a widget together faster than anyone else, so I became a manager. Uh, you know, um, it's classic. Or in sales, I sold more than anyone else, so I became a manager. But I was never really taught how to delegate, give recognition, things like this. And so here we find ourselves, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's do a little selling of our listeners here, Simon. Um, in looking at what you're doing and in growing resilience and trying to get leaders to be more successful, tell me how we do it. How do we grow that resilient side? And let's do it with us. We'll leave the managers alone right now. We'll start here in us. How do we do it?
First of all, take your meds. MEDS is an acronym that means meditate, exercise, diet, and sleep. Take care of yourself before you take care of others.
Okay.
Before you log on, before you return a text, you got to be in a good headspace. I think once you take your meds, then the second thing you begin to say, how can I add value to the day? How can I make a difference today? Not because I have to, but because I want to. And what does that look like? I think the third thing is, how do you move from here I am to there you are? How do you make it about others every single day?
Well, first of all, hats off again, former Zeroid. I love processes. Okay. When I first booked you, and I thought, I know this guy's going to be inspirational. Now let's see if he can be process oriented. Well, you are. You just gave us three repeatable, predictable things to do. Write it down. Better yet, get the book and study the book. But now I know that you're not only a motivational and inspirational person, but you're a process oriented person. And personally, I appreciate that. And but when I launched the question, I said we got to sell. Okay, we got to sell ourselves. How do we get past? I'm with you. Just that last little bug in our ear that, and I refer to it as sort of that fear of change bug. How do we squash that? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so there's a Yiddish proverb that says the only person that likes change is a wet baby. Nobody likes change, right? But here's where I think things get hung up. Change is an event. It's the transition where people get hung up. And the transition is, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? And how do I not take it personal? It's just business. And sometimes in the transition, we're stuck on the event. The event has come and gone. People have moved on. It's the transition of, how do I show up with the right attitude? How do I ask the right questions? And how do I advance thinking. That's how you get through the transition. Advancing thinking is ensuring that there's clarity. Do we understand what's going on? And we revisit and talk about what's winning, what's working, and how do we make it better?
Yeah. And stop me if I'm wrong, but let me dovetail on that because I love that. I think that our instinct a lot of times is to beat ourselves up when we go through that assessment. And I'm always trying to encourage people while you're doing what Simon just said, balance it out a little bit. First of all, not 10 things. Let's work with one or two and let's come up with a game plan for them. And two, let's come up with one or two things that we are firing properly on, that we're doing well. So we don't forget to do that.
Yes.
But let's keep it in balance. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's how you build resilience. You build that resilience muscle because you begin to bounce back better. You're not stuck and looking in the rear view mirror of where things were before. You're looking through the windshield of where you're going.
Perfect. Okay, now the book is called Resilience at Work: How to Coach Yourself into a Thriving Future. Good news, Simon. This group that listens knows 2 points. One, they buy books, and two, they write reviews on books. So let's grab that book. I noticed there's an audio book on this one as well. Did you do the audio for that?
I did the audio myself.
I would have been shocked if you said no. And I would have been very, and I probably would have spent the next 4 minutes giving you a hard time about that. But good answer. Good answer. I always want an author to do their own reading. And for some reason, they go, well, I found it. No, actually, we're reading the book desperate to hear your voice in our head. So good for you. I'm not surprised, but good for you. I'm glad. So we got an audiobook, we got a Kindle, we got a hardcover on this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No paperback.
Not yet.
Okay. Good, good, good. And the book came out in February, yeah?
Correct.
How's it doing?
It's doing really well. We're already in our second printing.
That's called really well. Okay. That's
Yeah.
that we don't do second printings in the publishing world, folks, unless the book's doing well. So, and that's fast. So good for you. Very good. All right. Next time I talk to you, I want to hear second edition. Okay.
Yes.
That's what comes next. Good. Good. Okay. All right. Let's talk about how resilience can let's talk about let's talk about the journey of this. There's wanting and there's doing. And I think we were getting at it when we were talking about selling, but I think this is so important that I want to stay on it a little bit longer because I know us, and I know that we can sometimes chase a shiny penny. So we come out of the gate because you're giving us a process. Love that. Now we can measure it. We can fix it. But just talk us through it a little bit because whenever we grab a process, it's not quite natural right out of the gate. We're a little bit what we call consciously competent, right? We're thinking about what we want to do. We're doing it, but we don't own it yet. How do we get from that conscious competent to unconscious competent?
I think the first thing we have to start with are some questions that I put in the book. And the first question is, what do you want for you? And that what do you want for you question is, as I'm moving to competence, what's in it for me, but not just me, what's in it for everyone around me? And how do I begin to engage them in dialogue to make sure that we're moving from me to we? And I tend to talk in sound bites, and that's intentionally because I want to create mental post-it notes for people to kind of hold on and anchor what I'm saying. So when we move from me to we, I'm asking that question, what do you want for you? But even more importantly, how do we handle problems along the way? Because things are going to happen. Problems are a gift because it allows us to put a stake in the ground and say, what do we learn, unlearn, relearn, so that together we can move quicker, faster. I think the third thing to consider is how do we, in moving to competence, truly practice AI? Actual intelligence. And actual intelligence is looking at the repository of past wins, looking at where we are in the present, but with an eye towards the future, saying the future is created in the present, and how are we going to ensure the actions, behaviors, everything we put in place is going to create a viable future.
I got a question for you. Do you keep a journal?
I do. So you asked me, do I keep a journal? I have been journaling for 25 years. And this is just half of my journals.
And he's showing about a half a dozen books in his hand. I asked that question. I was almost tongue in cheek because you were describing somebody who creates a journal. Because Simon, you're talking to another guy. I can't get around to it. Besides, I'll be off mic if I do. But I've got about 2,800 pages of journaling. And you know what I call journaling? When we journal, and I call it becoming methodically observant.
Yes.
In other words, some of us are waiting for something really brilliant to go by. And you know what? Every now and then it will, and see if you can grab it. But methodically observant, and Simon, correct me, what Simon's describing when you start journaling is don't wait for the brilliance bug to smack you in the ear. Put your hands on the keyboard, put a pen in your hand and start talking. And
Yes.
and for me, when I think I have little to say, I'm shocked at how much I have to say. When I think I've got it all pinned down, let's say I don't have as much as I thought. How about you?
Same thing. And
Yeah.
listen, I was walking this morning, so I get about 7,000 to 8,000 steps in the morning. And I'm listening to this book called Digital Mindset. And it started talking about statistics and data. But then I said, wait a minute, it's about the narrative. It's the story. Yes, the numbers don't lie, but the numbers may have bias in them. So I started thinking, where have I had bias in my processes and what I'm doing? It just made me think, but it's those little micro moments that you pay attention that the epiphany comes.
Yeah. So for another time, but I can't stress enough how important I think it is to journal. And if this hasn't convinced you yet, how about just sort of taking notes on your life? If we're so blessed that Simon and I are sitting in a chair someday thinking about the careers that we had and the stages we stepped on and the people that we met, we've got something to hand to our children. We've got something to hand to others to say, I took some notes, you know. I can't wait to read them. And my children occasionally will look. I bind them up every year. And I used to, when my folks were around, I'd send them to Florida and let them see what this kind of unusual career looks like. But boy, I can't stress it enough. I've gotten so much out of my journals.
Yeah. In fact, I would offer a recommendation for all your listeners. There is an app called Day One. Disclaimer, I have no affiliation with them. It's just an app I've been using, but it's on my phone and I've been using it for the last 3 years. So what it allows you to do is capture notes. You can import media, video, audio right into the app and literally track how you're thinking and feeling on a daily basis. Day One Journal app.
All right. Sold. By the way, I do. I'm a live auctioneer for about 14, 15 years just for charity. So yeah, that one you sold. I'm dropping the gavel on that one. That's great. When we finish, I'm going to take a look at that because I am kind of old school. I usually do my journaling when I'm flying out to a gig, when I'm flying back to a gig. Another thing, not everybody, but with me, it's like working out. You get your steps in the morning. You have that plan. That's important to you. And when you can't do it, you negotiate where you'll fill in and catch up on it. I do that with journaling. I have certain times and places I know I'm going to be able to write. And when I can, I do a little bit of negotiating. But I love this idea because I think it'll free me up a little bit more. Right now, I'm just using my tape recorder when I go, got to write about that one. Uh,
Yeah, you love Day One.
Another thing Simon and Rob have connected on. Let's get back to the book. All right, resilience at work. You talk about some characters. Hurry, worry. Ones I think I understand. I'm a little wary of those two, but I did some reading on that. I'm not sure I should be as wary, but you talk me through them. And then you got ready and steady. How about walk us through those characters a little bit?
So Hurry, Worry, Ready, and Steady meet at a surfing camp in La Jolla, California. And at the end of each surfing lesson, they go and sit by a campfire. And Hurry and Worry want to understand what is it that Ready and Steady are doing to thrive. So Ready and Steady begin to take Hurry and Worry through the series of questions. What do you want for you? What are you feeling? But the third question is, what step are you willing to take to get what you want? And the reason Ready and Steady ask those questions is because they've already been through the journey. And what they're trying to convey to Hurry and Worry, the Calvary's not coming to save you. There is nobody that is going to do anything for you. It's up to you. So it's this invitation for hurry and worry to get involved with, if I'm going to be resilient, the best hand that will feed me in any economy is the one at the end of my wrist, number one. Number two, stop working a job and go to work, because a job stands for just overboard. When you go to work, you become an intrapreneur. So you're not waiting for the tap on the shoulder from management to say, do this. You are always pushing the envelope and asking, what if? And then the third thing is, you realize when you are working, customer service is a department, but customer love is a mindset. And you find those little extra things that you do for your internal and external customers that creates a resilient future for you.
Ooh, it feels like you've said that once or twice. uh, you know what's interesting about what you're talking about, and tell me if I've got this right. Because when I first was looking at you, I thought, "Oh, hurry, worry! I know we're going to want to run for the hills from those two." But that's not really what you're saying. You're saying, if I've got it, you're saying we can control those. We in a sense, we need those. Yeah.
Yes, in our research of the state of work in America, what we found out is 56% of working Americans say they're living life in a hurry, and they never have a chance to really slow down and enjoy smelling the roses, if we could say it like that. 48% of working Americans are worried about the future. So that's equivalent of somebody showing up at work, their hand is on the steering wheel, but their foot is on the brake, because they're worried about, if I do the wrong thing, and it causes them to be stuck in neutral and not move forward. So hurry and worry, understand, wait a minute, this is not a bad thing. This isn't a curse. I can get involved in being resilient on a daily basis when I examine my behavior, my beliefs, and my actions.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting. You've got me thinking about that. It's interesting because when I work with others who, professional speakers, and I'm coaching them, a lot of times they're in a sense worried about worrying uh, when they're going to be presenting. And I guess I've got a little Simon in me, because I'm always telling them, that's not a bad thing. I'm not fond of the word, because a lot of times they'll use the word nervous,
Sure.
which I'm not big fan of nervous. To me, that's kind of chewing your nails in the corner. I am a fan of anxious, okay, which I think is a cousin of worry. In other words, well, I don't, I want to have a little something going. I don't want to walk up there feeling nothing, or I'm going to be flat. And maybe we can use that worry to just sort of channel our energy a little bit, and make sure that we give that audience everything that we know that they deserve. So let's not obsess ourselves on freeing ourselves from, anxiety or worry. Let's learn how to use it. That's the way I work with my speakers.
Yes, I love it. And it's good to have a little worry and anxiety, because it keeps you honest. It
Yeah.
keeps you saying, you know what, I got to be present in this moment and lean into how I'm really feeling, because you come across more authentic with the audience, that you're not perfect. You're
Yeah.
just there to have a conversation.
Yeah. I've had people come up, many times in my career go, I don't want to make you nervous, but the president of Wisconsin is going to be in the corner or whatever. And I always tell them, first, I'm never get nervous because I don't like the word. But the second thing I tell them is, you're not making me anxious. You're actually helping me, because you're
Yeah.
giving me something to fight for. Look, when we do a task once in our life, we don't have to be coached into fighting for it. But do that task 2,000 times in your life, and you actually look for reasons to get a little worry in there, to get a little bit of anxiousness, as I say. So I like that, but I think it's instinct versus logic. Most people will instinctively want to shy away from that hurry and that worry part, not really realizing that we have to just learn how to control it. We don't have to get rid of it. We just have to use it.
There's a cliche, and it's a song, no pain, no gain. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so true. You gotta move forward with the pain. That's how you grow. That's
Yeah.
how we all grow.
Yeah. Absolutely. A matter of fact, it's an old saying. I don't exactly know how it goes, but something like about when you're feeling butterflies. This is what I used to tell my children. When you're feeling butterflies, you're growing. Uh,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
again, that helps a child. And by the way, look in the mirror, helps us too. Remind ourselves that that's not a bad thing. Obviously, you're putting yourself out there if that's what you're feeling. You're doing something that's new, that's different, that's unusual. You're taking a risk. You're moving past your fear of change.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to feel a butterfly. But let's grab it. Let's embrace it. Those are the days where we really feel alive.
And you know what's on the other side of the fear? When you've done it for such a long time, you move to flawless execution. So I'll give you an example. My wife and I this past weekend heard Earth, Wind, and Fire and Lionel Richie on the same ticket. All right. It was a date night. We're there with 20,000 people. And if you put this in perspective, both have been performing for over 50 years. And when I say they were flawless, they were flawless. I mean, they're both in their 70s. Philip Bailey and a lot of the band, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and Lionel Richie in their 70s, and effortless and flawless. Because when you get past the fear, you're not to impress anyone. You're just, I'm in this moment and I'm going to serve this moment, and it's just going to happen.
Yeah. And Simon, isn't it funny? We come back to that instinct versus logic. People sometimes get almost ornery. They want to fight that repetition a little bit. And I embrace it. I like repetition. Of course, it's not exactly the same every time. But listen, anybody can perform under pressure as long as they don't feel the pressure. Okay. How do you get rid of the pressure? It's typically two things: repetition and reminding yourself of a track record of, well, what usually happens when I do this? Oh yeah, it goes well, that the stage doesn't collapse, something doesn't fall from the ceiling. Matter of fact, the imperfect moments become really the finest parts of the performance. Uh, but you have to get repetition to believe that.
Absolutely. This morning I got in really late last night, almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up at 5 because I'm just a morning person. I did my meditation and then I started walking. And if the truth be told, I didn't want to walk. I was like, "Ah, I don't want to walk." But what I realized, muscle memory kicked in, and I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I was listening to the audiobook and I kept going. And what it taught me is when I feel that resistance that Stephen Pressfield talks about, push through the resistance for who you become in the process. Because it's easy to quit. It is so easy to quit. But when you push through the resistance on the other side, you figure it out.
Bingo. And when you push through that resistance and don't quit, the next time it comes up, which will be very soon, the voice to quit isn't quite as loud. And when you beat it back that time, the next time gets a little quieter. It's always there. Did you ever see the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yes, great
Remember
movie.
at that one point near the end when the guy says, "You still hearing those voices?" Says, "Yeah, but I don't listen to them, and they've kind of given up on me, and they know I've given up on them, but they're standing right there. They're just uninterested in him."
Yeah.
I use that visualization, Simon, sometimes thinking we all have this, this fear, this imposter syndrome, however you want to articulate it. But the more skilled we are at fighting it back, the easier it is to keep it in check.
And that's resilience at work in a nutshell. You just like literally
We got there.
encapsulated it right there.
I almost want to. Let's stop now. Let me ask you one more. I'm not touching that. Thank you. And that is, it's funny. As I said, I went, it sounds familiar. Oh yeah, it's the guy looking at me. Okay,
Yeah.
that show works for me. Let's wind down with just a couple of mentors, or and just we'll big picture this now. A couple of mentors that helped you along the way that maybe you're thinking about right now.
Yeah, one of the individuals that I met along my journey, obviously Zig Ziglar, And about a year before he passed away, his son Tom reached out and asked if I would go to lunch with his father, Zig, and his wife, he affectionately called the redhead, his wife for 62 years. And I said, Zig, what is the one thing that I can share with people? And he said, just remember to tell people, if you help enough people get what they want, enough people will help you get what you want. And that just has stayed with me forever. Another person who left too soon is a guy named Tom Wininger. And Tom was an amazing speaker. And I talked to him during the pandemic. And he wrote a book called Your True DNA. And one of the things he talked to me about was, Simon, always remember unqualified readiness. And I said, what's unqualified readiness? He says, you're never going to be ready to do whatever is in front of you. But if you just put one foot in front of the other, you're going to feel unqualified. But how you qualify yourself is one little micro step in a forward direction. And it's simple, but that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And by the way, you're channeling my dad right now, because that was one of his favorite phrases. Get one foot in front of the other, particularly when we're dragging a little bit. You got to, get up, dust yourselves off, put one foot in front of the other. That's something that really resonates with me. Your story about Zig also resonates. I had an interaction with Zig, myself, and Tom. Actually, I had Tom on the show. But Tom told me something that was very interesting. I'll toss one back at you. He said, I asked him, if you could go back and talk to a young Tom, what would you tell him? And he said something I never forgot. He said, there were some pretty impressive people around our dinner table. I mean, they had presidents, you name it. They were around that table. And he felt that those were contacts and people that would be around him his whole life, in a sense. And and he said, the one thing I learned is that that's not the way it works, that you have to really maintain your network and be diligent, because you wake up one day and say, I met a lot of people, but I don't really know a lot of people. And for Tom to share that, and, Tom is has a different personality than his dad. You know what I mean? Just a little more introverted,
Sure.
but very thoughtful on that response. And something that, again, it's what I love. I love being able to meet people like you, Simon, and have these conversations. I hope people enjoy them, but I'm learning a lot. That really helped me a little bit and think, yeah, that's something. And then Simon, you and I get to tell other people and help them learn these lessons, because they'll learn them one way or the other. But I'd rather help them a little bit earlier than perhaps they think.
Yes.
Anyway. All right, my friend, your book, Resilience at Work, How to Coach Yourself into a Thriving Future. Folks, it's on Amazon, and I'll tell you something, it does not have enough reviews for my liking, so we got to jump on that. Simon, I will tell you that the publicists always tell me, we're going to send you a copy of this man's book, and I always tell them, not yet. I want to meet him. I want to see if I like it, because if I do, I want to buy it so I can put a verified review on there. You're going to see one from Rob Jolles on there as well. Really enjoyed the time. The fact that you got in late, you got up early, you still muscled your way to this podcast means a lot to me. How do people get a hold of you, Simon?
They can go to simontbailey.com. T like terrific.
Well, you are terrific, and I really thank you for your time and wisdom, and thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
You.
Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jolles.com.